There are 9 different propaganda techniques that you may find referenced on the Keystone exams. The following are the definitions for each of those techniques, as well as an example of each one. The first technique is name-calling, and it is exactly what it sounds like it would be. It's attacking the person instead of an issue. So for instance, by labeling a person a commie, you're attacking the person as opposed to what the person may actually believe. You find this a great deal in political ads that target certain candidates. There is also the bandwagon. When you're using a bandwagon propaganda technique, you're trying to persuade the reader to do, think, or buy something because it is popular, or because everyone is doing it. Basically, you're pointing out, look, everyone else is, you should do the same thing, or you should think the same thing. For instance, in advertisements, when you hear phrases like, everyone is rushing to their Ford dealership for this great sale, you're trying to make the reader or the viewer believe that this is something that everyone else is doing, so that they should do it too. The next type is the red herring. The red herring attempts to distract the readers with details that are not relevant to the argument. In this attempt, a lot of times the author will become so wordy and include so many details that the reader actually loses sight of the real issue. For example, you may now have begun thinking that there is some merit in the Republicans' tax cut plan. I suggest that you come up with something like it, because if we Democrats are going to survive as a party, we have got to show we are as tough-minded as the Republicans, since that is what the public wants. We begin with the real issue, the tax cut plan, but this author includes all of this extra stuff, all of these extra words, these details, that aren't related at all to the tax cut plan. Here we're talking about surviving as a party and doing what the public wants. That has nothing to do with the tax cut plan. But by the time you get to the end of it, you've forgotten what the actual argument is. The next type is the emotional appeal. This is where the author is trying to persuade the reader using words that appeal to the reader's emotions instead of to logic or reason. So for instance, you wouldn't want your kids to be left behind on the information superhighway, would you? What kind of parent are you anyway? Here you're appealing to the reader's desire to be a good parent, instead of any kind of logic or reasonable response as to why you wouldn't want your kids to be left behind. The testimonial, which you see all over the place, is an attempt to persuade the reader by using a famous person to endorse a product or idea. So take, for example, the front of the Wheaties box, where you always have very prominent athletes. It seems to be claiming to you that if you eat that cereal, then you're going to become as athletic as that person on the cover. These propaganda techniques often work because, of course, as a society, we tend to look up to celebrities, and so we would like to mimic what they do, even when it comes to eating cereal. Repetition is exactly what it sounds like. It's when there is an attempt to persuade the reader by repeating a message over and over. Again, you're going to find this a lot in advertisements. You're also going to find this in political commercials. I can think of one commercial that appears, or the commercial theme appears all the time, where it says, "He said he didn't know," and it's repeated over and over and over about a politician in that same commercial. Repetition works because it tends to stick in our minds. There's also sweeping generalization, also known as stereotyping. And that's when we make this oversimplified statement. So we make a very simple statement about a group, but it's based on limited information. So for example, the majority of people die in hospitals, so stay out of them. Well, we can see how ludicrous this is. I mean, this is oversimplifying it. Yes, a lot of people die in hospitals, but that's because that's where unhealthy people go. So, of course, that's where a lot of people die. Staying out of them has nothing to do with whether you're going to live or whether you're going to die. So we're oversimplifying the topic. The circular argument is when we have a conclusion as part of the proof of an argument. So for example, if in an interviewer, we have an interviewer who says, your resume looks impressive, but I need another reference. So Bill says, well, Jill can give me a good reference. The interviewer says, good, but how do I know that Jill is trustworthy? Bill responds, certainly I can vouch for her. Well, Bill is the one that we're questioning whether he's trustworthy or not, whether he's a good person for this job. So he's saying, well, I can vouch for her, for his source, but who knows if he's trustworthy? This is a big circle. It could go on and on forever. It's kind of like that age-old comment, the chicken or the egg. Appeal to numbers, facts, or statistics, you really need to be careful of this one, because this one tends to come in when you're not expecting it. This is when the author attempts to persuade the reader by showing how many people think something is true. Please be aware that always numbers and statistics can be used to support any argument. It is possible to shape numbers in such a way and to phrase that shaping in such a way that you can always make numbers work for you, regardless of your argument. So as a reader, you really need to be careful to clearly identify these numbers, these statistics that you're being given. So for example, 73% of Americans believe this candidate will do a better job. Can they all be wrong? Well, what Americans were polled? Better job than whom? You have to engage critical thinking questions and critical thinking skills in order to really look at whether numbers and statistics are giving you an accurate picture or whether they're being used as propaganda to persuade you to go in a specific way.